the last time we looked at this game, it had no graphics. It had very placeholder graphics. Well, now I found some really good graphics that will fit the game really well. And now let me show you it. Look at this. Oh, it's so much better. And as you notice, we've had the edges filled out, and there's no longer those that it ends randomly. We now have these nice half opacity edges on the edge. And you may have also noticed the sun is going around. I've not timed it perfectly, but we have that. So it's looking really good now. The only thing that we're missing now is really to change the sprites, the tongue, the enemies, the sun texture, and add a few stars, add a night looking good. And you may have noticed we've also added this new little fella. The temporary little green square that is moving across the screen is the worm. There's only one worm can appear on the level, and static changes row at random. It spawns on a random row and it will change at a row. It will move to one side and then it will swap to a different row. In this case, it's just keep going to the top row. And hopefully when it reaches the end, it should again change. Not that there's probably a bug in the code. There we go. See, now I've gone to that row. The new textures as well are, as you can see, there's a bit of randomization to it. We have a few different patterns. We got this one little green grass. Some of these stones on the outside as well are also a little bit randomized as well, which is nice. We've got nice little grass toppers here as well. So we've got some nice variation. And in this tile set I've downloaded, there are different types of colors and rocks we can use, so we can actually even randomize per level, which will be super cool as well. And maybe even add like pockets of other little holes and stuff appearing to make it more interesting. If we return to the main menu, I've added the credits, and this is for the tile set. This is it for now, but this contains the URL for the tile set I've downloaded. This was you had to credit the author of it. Part of the LPC terrains, which the LPC stands for Liberated Pixel Cup, which was a competition held back in 2013 or 2012, somewhere around then, where it was sort of like a standardization of designing pixel art for people to use. So if we open this link, these links actually do work. It will open the default browser of the user, whoever's playing, or whatever the default browser is. So here it is, and you can see all the different things it mentions, and the copyright. These are all the different things that were in the credits.txt. So I've had them, and they all open links. So they'll be, I'll probably beautify it, as it's obviously a bit bland at the moment, but I'll just put it as well. If you are someone that is looking into adding sets and pixel art open source rather than designing your own, I do recommend that you follow any that are tagged as LPC, as they're all meant to match each other's theme. They're all 32 by 32 and they just look really nice. And I also recommend you design your artwork like this as well. Keep it standardized, so that means you can add on top of it. Or if you have some piece of work that you have that you would like more of and don't want to design it and want to get some open source stuff, then this is a good method. And the style sheet is pretty simple, explains how you design your sprite work and what the sort of character should look like. They're mainly designed for RPGs, but you can obviously expand to anything else. But these are really cool, and there's plenty of resources and tons of assets out there that I follow this theme that is within the Open Game Art website. So I highly recommend you look into it and try them out, and even design your own, upload them. So let's look deeper into the tile set, and as you can see, this thing is pretty huge. It's got a lot of terrains in there. So at the moment I'm picking from these bottom ones, these flat ones, and I'm also picking from these ones for the top, and this is what I have at the moment. But as you can see, we have a ton of variation, so we could do some holes, we could add a bit like this green grass stuff, cobblestone even down here, and we even got lava. And it'll be pretty fun maybe as you get further into the game, you go to the more hostile sort of environment, so it gives like this little slime sludge area, and then like it goes to lava or something, and the ants are all demonic or something. That could be really fun. But I'm definitely going to add this variation, so we have like a whiter rock, a kind of a whitey yellow creamy rock color, and then we got a small of a traditional sandstone color, and more of a stone color, mud color, different types of grass colors. You've got like snow here and different colors of grass. I think I should add a bit of randomization. I do have some randomization if I go to the cave generator. and I've added a new function called the generate outskirts, because this is before we had nothing on the sides of our level. It was just the blankness, and you'd see the enemies just disappear off the side. And we needed something to generate that would keep them hidden, and this is what it does. Essentially, we get both the width of the level and we get the height of our level +2, because +2 signifies the top and the bottom, which I add up here, but I pen to that row. It essentially just goes through and we check if it's the top row, we do the grass tile, and then else if it's not that, we check if it is equals X and if it is Y equals 2. So this is the row where the player can move, and within that we add those sort of half opacity rocks, which are like these ones here. If you can see my cursor, is this one here, these ones, and that just adds like a nice little effect where, boy, it would look like it would just they would just get chopped off, but now they would, you know, they're kind of like, it looks like they're actually hiding into the background, which is really nice. We also, I think I want to point out the fact when we do cell position 2, this is the right hand side, I'm adding the width, so this is to make sure it's on the other side. Never noticed. Well, I'm also getting the viewport size. Well, at the moment the viewport size remains the same, but I'm basically getting the screen X, the width of it, just so I can fill it out the max. If in case the screen width is the bigger or smaller, we're not just rendering and creating tiles that aren't even going to be visible, or the screen's too big and then you can see the end of it. So this is why I did that. And then else, this is for the rest of it, so we're just filling it out, and I'm using a random texture, just 0 to 2, so it gives 3 options. If it's 0, then do this one. If it's 1, that one. If it's not neither of them, so that would be 2 in this case, generate. And that's it. If we go to the bottom again of this tile set, it's because there's 3 variations of each one. So one I'm using is this one. Well, one of them is this one. For the ant, when they're in the cave where the player can move, it's these ones, while the others are this one for the background. You see, they're just slightly different in shade, so it adds a bit of, rather than looking repetitive, it looks different. And this means when we go to the load level, I've added the randomization as well. It adds this as well for the rows the player can't move through, and this is the one where they can move through. But for the future, I'll probably add like a dictionary or some sort of object where we can store all these different coordinates. We randomize which part of the dictionary we want to choose, so we can have the, you know, that lava level and all that, and that will just store the coordinates for each texture, and then we can just select, if it's this one, we select that one. It should be nice and easy. Now, another thing I mentioned was that this was a 32 by 32 pixel tile set. As we know, the last tile set we used was a 64 by 64. How did we scale it up? Well, we just did that. We just scaled it up by 2. So the tile's size is actually still 64 in the game, but we're just upscaling it to be 64 by 64. We shouldn't really use really any quality. The quality should remain the same, pretty fine, even in full screen. It looks good. So I also mentioned briefly is the sun that goes around, and also this background you may have noticed is also blue, which is at the moment just a color rectangle that's hidden. And oh yeah, this is also the level complete screen, but we'll get to that in a bit. To go over the sun, it's simply a path 2D with a path follow 2D with the sprite of the sun, which is an animated 2-frame. And so if we look at the code, we initially just hide it, and then once it's ready we show it, and we make the position to be the width of the level, and then but make that a negative so it appears on the left side, so we're sort of appearing at the end, or attempted to at the moment, because it's still relatively temporary. We also play the animation, and then on the process we check if the sun ready is true, and then we get it to follow the path follow with the H offset, and we're doing a lerp, so we're doing it over the running time of the total time, and this is just temporary at the moment, so we have the running time here and the total time. I haven't actually set it to be about a minute, which is the day length, which should be, I need to go over it again, but the actual like function is all there. We just need to change it so it is all finalized and finished. For the level complete screen, it's a separate it's its own scene called level complete, and it just has a lot of like control nodes, so the color rectangle, all these boxes, vertical boxes. It also has a multiple timer, and that's because at the end of a level, it should calculate the bonus you get from eating the ants times by the worms. 4 variables: the ants left, ants eaten, worms eaten, and total bonus. So the total that will be added onto the player score. And initially we hide it, so because we're including the scene into the level node scene, the main level, and we want it hidden, and we only want to show it once the player has completed the level rather than it being visible all the time. And here we have the calculation for the bonus score, which is we just get the ants eaten, the ants left, so we're storing that. Once this is when the player's completed, they'll start doing it. We update the labels that we have, so the text, so how many ants the player's eaten and how many worms have eaten. And then we start this timer. Timer triggers, I believe it should be, let's check, every 0.5 seconds. And it's a one shot, we don't want it to keep going. So we then do a chunk, so we do the worms eaten divided by the, I think this is incorrect because I don't know why I'm dividing worms eaten by worms eaten, but we'll ignore that for now. And then we decrement this chunk to the ants left. So we're doing it a bit by bit. We also check if the ants are less than 0, and then we just do the remaining ants left on it from the chunk. And the total bonus is just the chunk times the worms eaten. We actually need to add 100 because at the moment it's just doing, oh, how many ants you got left, oh, 10 times 5 or whatever, when it should be like, oh, 100 times 5 or something. We also update this text. The ants left is greater than 0, that means we can restart the timer, else we emit a signal saying change the level, so to move on to the next level, reset the total bonus back to 0, and then we try this again and that finish it. So it's still improvements like my worms eaten by chunk would be just 1 because we're just dividing it by itself, so it should not be correct. It could be just an arbitrary number like 5 or something, just, oh, it does it 5 times over. So the worm has some interesting properties. You cannot directly eat it, so if I go into it, I die. Instead, what the player has to do is that when the worm is within the tongue length, it cannot be hit. So this bit with the, so, oh, here we go. When I press R, eats it. So the only way the player can eat it is actually by retracting the tongue when it's over tongue part. And the worm can't hurt the tongue part, but if the player directly walks into the worm, it will hurt them. So just quickly looking at the code for the worm, we have the change row function, which is new. Here we generate a random row based on the level height, so it can either be 1 or the maximum level height, and we just check if the row is divisible by 2. If it's 0, this means we need to regenerate a new row. We're also flooring it so we don't get it rounding up, so we want it to round down. While loops can be pretty dangerous because you could end up running this loop for a very, very, very long time until it generates a unique value. But for us, this is kind, what's the odds of it generating the second or third time over not doing it? So this is completely fine. Another method would be that we actually, on level generation, is that we won't be in this one, it'll be in the level cave generator, is that we save what rows can actually be generated, where the player is not generated, but where the enemies can be spawned. And that means we wouldn't need these loops and stuff, which I'm actually perhaps thinking would be a nice change and would reduce the computation, because loops are quite computationally heavy. The spawn worm, where I just lost it, is we give it a random speed, we give it a random side it should spawn on. Again, the random row, the same as this code could probably be put in its own function to save reusability, and then we just snap it to position. It's really simple. And then when the worm has been eaten by a player, or the area, in this case, so the player top end of the tongue, the player has entered the area. Firstly, we check, is the player retracting the tongue? If it is true, then we can set the respawn timer, we can reset their position off the map so they're not causing any trouble. We set to dead to true. Not, this will kill the player, which will be in the player code, not the enemy code. If we go back to the player code, we'll obviously have the worms eaten and ants eaten for the level complete screen. We want to record, we want to know how many points, or how many worms and ants the player has eaten, so we can calculate that for when we know on the level complete. We add the retracting boolean value, which is false true, so we know if the player is retracting their tongue or not. So if we look at the on area entered for the player, we can see we have the worm. We check if retracting is equal to true, and we increment the 1. and we increment their points. But if not, then we tell them actually the player has been hit, and on player hit we emit the signal life has changed to the main level. In the input is action press retract. We also just through here we also telling that the retracting variable is true through here, so we directly know that when the button is being pressed that this should be set true rather than trying to do it within the player. I think this is a more accurate approach rather than doing it in perhaps the player's process node or something. Now for the level complete, this is pretty easy, and it's just simply triggered by we're calculating how many eggs the player has really eaten. This is it. We're not even actually removing the eggs from the pool, we're just calculating how many the total eggs are and how many players eaten. And so when the players eat an egg, it just emits it to the level node, so on player egg eaten, also passing it the ants eaten, the worms eaten, and this is for when we calculate the bonus of the level complete. So we just decrement it, and if we're just checking if the total eggs are 0, reset the level back to false, and we're just emptying all these arrays which will contain all the nodes for the enemies and such. And then we call that the enemies group, and we're queuing them for it, removing them from the pool, and this is how we're ready to regenerate the whole level. And then we show the level complete, and we calculate that bonus. If we go back to that level complete screen, we said earlier, emit level, change level. So we go back to the level node, and that's because it will emit to this function, which just increases the level number, and we reset all the code to regenerate the level. So the player is like, it's like the player just press start again, but we're keeping obviously the score and all the other info out. And then perhaps we can also use this to increase difficulty as the level increments. The new level is going to get harder, change the background, blah blah blah. Some of the more minor things was, for example, last time we had the issue of the collision not working too well with the ants. The ants would, if a player moved too fast, they would eat the ant, but then was also kind of the tongue part behind the player that would kill them. And really it was just a simple situation of, oh, we just need to check if they're dead first as well, and that seems to fix the issue. So we also check if it's dead. And this pause function here, false, this is when the player gets hit it has the second where the whole map is paused, all the entities aren't moving, and so we don't want them, if any ant has walked into the tongue, it's not going to keep triggering that they died multiple times. So we should check, oh, the level's paused, we do nothing. For the spider, previously I was just getting the tongue positions, now I also give it the player position, so this means it will walk into the player. Previously it did not walk into the player, and so if I show you that it will be able to now walk in and kill the player. So if I just start the game, I've set the timer to be only like 5 seconds. If I just play it like normal, okay, here we go, we'll let it come to us. It gets to the player position, follows us, keeps following, and boom, it attacks us. So it's still a ways to go. And also on death, it needs to reset position. It's actually going back to my old position, because I haven't actually updated the spider's position of when I die. So it's just going to, oh, this is its last recorded position, which was where I was. But if I move, it should reset. Okay. It'll go over. It also shouldn't be crossing over the lines like that. So we need to try and, when the player is just sitting there not doing anything, it needs to go to the center, then go to player position, which means it will just go directly up towards it. And if the player has just been moved down once, either way, it's also going to just go to center and find it from there. So one of the biggest things I need to improve on is really the controls, is that they're just too inaccurate. Like, oh, trying to get through this hole can be really, like, I'm trying to tap it, and I go over, I go behind. The game is also just far too difficult at the moment, and I think ants only are meant to spawn like the 2/3 of the level. They're not meant to spawn in the last 3 rows. So we also need to make that change. So improve the controls and reduce the difficulty, maybe increase this respawn time, because it feels so hard to go out and actually complete levels. So we're going to go here and try my best to see if I can do it. And level won't be level generation, because the levels are, a lot of these ones, caves, rows out here, are just way too near the edge, and there's not really enough time to actually react if you can actually even get to the end in time. So perhaps using a different type of random generator, because we're using a uniform generator, but there's a thing that we can use called a normal or Gaussian distribution. So a Gaussian distribution is, if we check on the NumPy website, the package for Python, it is a distribution that looks like this. So the majority of the values generated are in the center, and so it's very rare for the outskirts of the curve here will be ever generated, like less than like 0.1% or something chance. This could be really ideal for us generating the holes, is we use a normal distribution rather than what we're currently using, the uniform distribution. So this one again, NumPy, a uniform is that all odds, all of them have an equal chance of being picked. Most games probably use a uniform, but I think if we try and be experimental with a bit of a normal, I'm not actually sure how easily it can be implemented in Godot, but the formulas are here to generate it if we want to try and do it ourselves, but can be quite difficult. So right, looks like Godot has got us covered on the documentation. We have rand fn, depends on normally distributed pseudo random number using box mode transform, which would be good. It means we can give it a go. I don't know if they have any other distributions such as relay and stuff. It would also be fun to try out, and it can give us different results rather than just using uniform, such as the texture generation for the background. With uniform, it just feels, it can feel a bit sporadic. If we use a different distribution, then we can get different clumps of textures in certain areas rather than them being sort of left around sporadically. But just to demonstrate the level complete, I've disabled all collision, and I'm gonna eat this last queen, which will clear our enemies, so it shows you that works. And then we're gonna eat the last one, and I only eat one worm, so it's just gonna do, you know, one by one. And you can see here it goes up incrementally, and once it's finished, boom, we're on anthill number 2, and we've completely generated a new level. All enemies are here, and blah blah. Our points have also been updated. So the main changes we need, you obviously need to change the textures for the enemies. I think this is one I should do next, to really beautify everything, get the timer fixed, make the difficulty lower as well. I think by the next build, I want it so I can actually have full-on play the game and get to multiple anthills without struggling at the moment. Look at footage of the original game and see how the animals react better. See if they need to be slower, faster, lower, respawn time is longer, so that, and analyze that. It's kind of very interesting to make this and like kind of copy it and think, well, how did they do this? How did the difficulty that and that and that? And even though the game looks so similar, my guys gonna keep dying now. Even though the game looks so similar, we're still quite far away off it. It doesn't play the same at the moment. It's similar, but it looks similar, but it's a lot harder. There's variation. The level generation is probably going to be different until we change that, or make our own quality of life changes. So it's all very interesting making this game. We're learning a lot. I think I've got majority of the changes in this video covered now. We're definitely close. A lot of the stuff we're changing is really small changes that need to be, to optimize the game, make it run better, make it play better. All the core features seems to be here. We've got the enemies, we've got the level change, we've got the score, we have the player movement, we've got the player collision, we've got the enemy collision. And so it's stuff like, just improving all these parts to make the game fun and playable and enjoyable. I do hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you also check out some of those textures as well, the LPC stuff. That's a really cool stuff. If you are making a game, maybe check them out. Maybe you implement them in your own game, or also contribute with your own textures. And soon this game will be playable for everyone, hopefully. Anyway, please do subscribe if you want to see more, and thanks. And I'll see you in the next one.